So I will just quickly introduce you before we begin. So welcome. Jason is the founder and CEO of How to Change a World, a social enterprise spin out from University College London that delivers experiential education programs based on UN Sustainable Development Goals in partnership with leading universities from around the world. So from 2013 to 2018, he was the founding head of UCL's Department of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Public Policy. And he has previously taught, led research, and provided policy advice to universities and think tanks, including from Harvard, Oxford, Center for International Governance Innovation, and the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. So we welcome you, and we're so glad you were able to make it. Okay, if you want to share your screen or have a quick presentation, we could make you co-host.
Perfect, Kushi. Actually, I was just going to talk. Thank you so much. So I don't need to present slides at this point in time. And my sincere apologies for being so late. Unfortunately, it got put in my calendar for 10 minutes from now rather than 50 minutes ago. So I thought I was logging in early, and it turns out I was logging in quite late. So sincere apologies for that. It is a real pleasure to be with you. And I caught bits of a bit of the Q&A that's going on, and I don't want to take too much time from the Q&A, so I'm just going to go through the points that I wanted to make quickly, and then we can get back to the discussion of things. Building off what Rosemary was saying about coalitions and working with different people, the 3 points that I really wanted you to take away from what I had to say is, first, changing the world is a team sport. Whatever it is, whatever change you want to make, and I know we're talking in the context here about raising climate change within the priority of the universities that you're at, but this also applies if you want to raise climate change as an issue in your local communities, in your national agendas, in the international arena. Whatever you're studying, whatever you're doing, you will always have a piece of the puzzle. I have a PhD in quantum physics and a master's degree in public administration, and a bunch of, you've heard the list of institutions I spend time at. And I've worked with colleagues who have 5 and 6 PhDs, and they still only have a piece of the puzzle. Because whether you're a social scientist and start to understand the dimensions of how people will interact with each other, or an engineer or a scientist who really understands technology, you can't possibly know all of the different pieces that are going to have to go into even changing the way your university addresses climate change. Engineers will have a really good idea about how energy is being used across the university. They can model it, they can understand where there's energy intensity. But the social scientist will be really useful for also understanding the behavior that goes along behind that use of energy. And so really, when you start thinking about how you're going to drive change within your universities or anywhere else, really think about the teams that you want to form up and what expertise you do not have, and intentionally seek out those that have different skills and knowledge from you. And this goes to my second point. Embracing diversity is critical. And what do I mean by that? There's clearly, when we talk about diversity and inclusion, we talk about gender, we talk about sexuality, we talk about race and culture. We often don't talk as much about interdisciplinarity, or even within a culture, the different socioeconomic classes or the different lives that are lived, the experiences that are lived, even within the same city. And so I want you to think as broadly as possible about diversity, because diversity within your teams, I already talked about the importance of disciplinary diversity or interdisciplinarity when you form up the teams. But you also want to be thinking about, who do you need to talk to? A great example is, yes, talking with the administration within a university to raise the climate change as an agenda is important. But the janitors, the engineers in the plants that are running the physical plants, the lab technicians, they're ones who actually know hands-on how various pieces of equipment, how energy is being used, and they're the ones whose behaviors are actually going to need to change. And so engaging them in the conversation really will change your understanding of the problem you're trying to solve in the first place. And this goes to the third point that I want you to take away. which is before trying to come up with solutions, know the problem you're trying to solve. And it's easy to say, I'm trying to solve climate change at my university. Well, okay, but there's a lot of things to do with climate change within your university, and you can't possibly solve it all. If you try and raise climate change as an agenda within the leadership, they'll probably give you 2 thumbs up and say, yes, we'll put it there. We'll write it down on a piece of paper that it's a priority. Okay, does that actually change anything? What steps are going to be taken in order to narrow down on the types of solutions that will make the biggest difference? You really do need to understand which piece of the climate change problem you're trying to solve. Are you trying to solve energy use? Are you trying to solve energy efficiency? Are you trying to solve adaptation to climate change? And each of those are going to manifest differently within your university context. And these 3 things are true no matter whether you're working within your university or at the international level. Changing the world is a team sport. Embracing diversity is critical, and really understanding the problems you're trying to solve before diving to solution. Just to give you an example, within How to Change the World, we run these educational programs. The first half of the program, not the first 10% or 20%, the first half, and often 2/3 for most teams, is spent identifying the problem that they're going to work on and understanding it to an incredible depth. Because once you've really identified the problem you're going to solve, the solution falls out from it. The solution starts to become obvious once you've engaged all the different stakeholders, once you've made sure you have the interdisciplinarity that you need, the diversity you need within your team. And so as specific advice for you as individuals and as student groups when trying to make an impact, I would strongly encourage all of you to, 1, identify within your student group that's trying to make a difference, what disciplines do you not currently have? And go find someone, find a student group, find an organization, find an individual who has that perspective. 2, map out those within your university that aren't just the leadership. Think about all of those different groups, the janitors, the lab technicians, the transport support teams, et cetera, and talk to them. Make sure you take the time to go around and understand their perspectives, and that will lead to being able to map more effectively the problem. And if you've picked up those skills, you'll not only have a big impact on the way your institution, because as an academic leader, when students come to me and say, we want to work on climate change, great. My first set of questions are, 1, who are you? How diverse is your team? Who have you talked to? How diverse is the community that you've been engaging with? And 3, what specific thing do you actually want to work on? And if a team comes to me, a group comes to me with clarity on those 3 points, it's incredibly easy for me to take action because you've already done the hard work of mapping it out. And as a university leader, all I have to do is give 2 thumbs up and put some money behind it, because now we know the direction of travel that it needs to go. Whereas if all you're doing is raising the issue, I then have to go through all of those steps myself. And that's actually that's a lot of energy for a university administration to spend, in addition to making sure that your classes run and making sure that the faculty are doing their job, and et cetera, et cetera.